Welcome, everybody, to the next episode of Diamond Effect Podcast. And today I have another fabulous guest with me, Kate Selbie, owner and strategic director of Stybek Roofing Company. I'm very excited to have as my guest a woman in the construction industry because that's very rare. And Katie, welcome. Thank you for doing this with me.
Thanks, Maggie. It's so good to be here. I appreciate you having me.
Yeah, thank you. And if you could introduce yourself to the listeners and viewers a little bit more in depth, I would really appreciate it.
I have a very unique background. So, my history actually is uniquely in HR. So, I started my career in that space. I grew into organizational development, took on executive leadership roles in HR. So, responsible from everything from organizational development, leadership, creating talent funnels, talent development, and actually strategic direction for business from a transformative perspective. So, how do we change and evolve to grow, to meet the changing demands of marketplace? And a couple of years ago, my husband actually bought a roofing company, so in the ICI space. And it had always sort of been the plan for me to help at some point, and I actually decided to jump ship from my corporate job to join him. So we own it together and we run the business together. And ironically, actually, we met in the commercial roofing space 16 years ago. So now full circle, we own and run a ICI roofing company together. I'm also a coach too, actually, so we have that in common.
I think we have a few things in common. We're both corporate leaders or ex corporate leaders. We both met our husbands at work.
That's right.
We have work.
You don't still work with yours, though?
Sorry, no,
If they don't, so yeah.
yeah, I work from home. He works.
Yeah,
We kind of work together, but on different businesses.
love it.
Yeah. I want to explore that a little bit more. Is how your background is helping you right now in leading the business.
That's a really interesting question because in every possible way. It's a really unique space right now, especially the construction market. There have been a lot of challenges, the political landscape, the economic landscape. So there's been a lot of evolution. Really, the challenge has been getting creative when it comes to filling the pipeline, making sure you have the right talent to respond, and also getting creative with the type of work that you're going after. And the reason why that's so important is because you're not seeing development the way that you used to. So you can't rely on new construction. Infrastructure is aging, so that's really great because that means we need to take care of existing facilities, but it's also finding those niche markets. So I come from continuous operations is really the background of my HR work. So we had to keep the funnel full with talent to be able to run continuous operations all the time. So it feels very similar in that regard because you're constantly trying to meet the demands of the marketplace while also looking for unique space to build your business, while at the same time trying to grow. The thing that I really didn't realize that I had that is an innate transferable skill is HR is oddly a sales role. You don't realize that it is. You're having to make changes to policies. You're having to make changes to people strategy. You're having to make business direction changes as far as leadership goes. And when you're doing change management, you have to get people on the bus because it doesn't work if you don't have everybody rowing in the same direction. So now what I've realized is when I go into a room, I'm effectively doing the same thing when I'm pitching my company and what we do. It's just a different room every time. And it is very similar in the HR world because you could be dealing with operators, you could be dealing with quality teams, you could be dealing with engineers, and they all have a different view. They all care about different things. They all have things that they value that are important to their work. So basically, I had to take my whole world and just flip the way that I was applying it. And if I'm being really honest, I loved that work. I did. But I don't think I realized just how much I could love what I was doing until I stepped into this. Because there's something really exciting about walking away from a meeting with somebody brand new or just happening upon someone where a conversation starts up and you realize, oh, we could really help each other. And I find a lot too, the thing that I really love about this industry, I have never encountered a space where women support each other as much as I've encountered that in this industry. And I think it is because it is so historically a male driven industry. And women are really trying to not only elevate each other, but be partners for each other. I get referred through women. I refer women. I create connections through women. I pass along connections through women. I think a lot of women in this industry are trying to see each other really succeed and get promoted and step into big opportunities and be leading decision making. And I have not encountered that quite at this level. and other aspects of my career until now. So I think that has been something that has really lit me up because
Mhm.
it is a very old school male dominated space. And so it's really, really cool to see that.
And you said so many things. You got
Mhm.
into it. But things that come to mind me first, I think you remember I told you that like my corporate background was in facility management, which
Yeah,
is very directly correlated with what you
absolutely.
do in your business.
That
I
company was
actually,
a company that a lot of roofers partner with. So yeah.
I found in my career that actually it was the women who supported me, who mentored me like really the most, right? Who helped me get promoted and build a career. I had the best mentors in the few women that were there at the time at the higher positions. So I'm not surprised and I'm glad to hear that because that was my experience as well.
Well, I think what's the most interesting to me, and I ask this question a lot to people. So I think a lot of people see construction as a legacy industry, but they don't truly understand what legacy industry means. I asked this question at an event very recently, and the response that I got actually was a gentleman saying, legacy industry. I picture that old picture in New York City where you see all the men sitting eating their lunch on that balance beam. And it's just old school. You gotta have courage and you gotta be willing to do the scary thing literally in this context, sitting
Mhm.
on a balance beam in the middle of
Yeah.
New York City on a skyscraper eating your lunch. And I laughed because I thought, "You're kinda there, but you're not quite," because legacy industry truly means an industry that has been the least disrupted by technology. And interestingly enough, so I also spent about a decade in manufacturing, and manufacturing certainly is a legacy industry in a lot of ways, but
Mhm.
automation has also very much changed a vast majority of that industry, not all of it. There's still definitely pockets where it is still done the same way it once was. But construction, you still need hands-on tools.
Mhm.
And certainly AI is coming, but a robot yet cannot build a building. A robot cannot put a roof on. A robot cannot detect what the leak is and be able to respond if there is water downpouring in rain and you've got to solve a problem right now before your roof collapses. It's just not possible.
And that's what I see as well. Like I have two step boys that are going into trades. I'm like, they will always have work.
Yes.
Robots are not gonna do it. AI is not gonna fix your toilet. It's not
Yeah.
gonna build the building.
Realistically, is it possible that it could? Perhaps at some point, but also when you think about the scale and cost of what it would require in order to do that,
Yeah,
and could the average citizen or even, quite frankly, company afford to invest in that? Probably not.
exactly.
So
Yeah,
we're still gonna need those human skills.
if you think about building a robot who could not only do the trade well, but then, as you say, troubleshoot in the moment and
Mhm.
figure out all the things that could possibly happen that are always happening, right?
Mhm.
On every job, there is things that happen that you never encountered before that you didn't predict and so on. Yeah, as you say that, I can even imagine how costly that would
No kidding.
So one thing that I do want to talk about, and just to help our listeners here, because you're very skilled, as you say, in keeping the pipeline in of the employees. And in the
Mm.
construction industry, for a lot of contractors out there, it's a challenge, not only for small businesses, it's a challenge to attract talent and keep and so on. And then they
Mm.
create those beliefs that, oh, there's no good people out there, nobody wants to work, nobody's
Mm.
reliable, and all those things. But I always say it takes a skill to hire the right people, to nurture them and coach them. And you also need to know, have a hiring process. What do you do? What are some tips that you could share? What do you do to keep your employee pipeline open so you have enough people to respond, to work on the projects, and they're the right people?
I actually have a couple very simple answers to this question, but my overarching answer would be keep your standards high. And the reason that I say that is I have had experience throughout the course of my career where there's a level of desperation. And it's that we just need a warm body is sometimes literally what a hiring manager will say. I reject that notion on its face. I think that keeping your standards high maintains the culture that you have. When you go around saying you're good at what you do, you better mean that because your clients are going to be counting on that. And when they have an experience that counteracts that, that is going to go a long way because word of mouth in any industry, for the vast majority of the time, is your power play. And if you don't have that, you don't have much. So keeping your standards high is critical because the reality is application boards can get flooded with hundreds of applications for one role, and you might not have a qualified applicant in there.
Right.
I would say secondarily, it's not always the technical requirements or the job description that you need to hire to, it's the attitude. And you hear that time and time and time and time again. But what does that actually mean? That means somebody who's truly got a willingness to learn and that's adaptable because things are always in motion. And the skill set that's super valuable today, we might have to pivot and jump into another vertical tomorrow. We might be doing a new application tomorrow. So you could have these 10 different skills, but I've got to be able to teach you to do something new tomorrow and have you not only willing to do it, but like ready to get your hands dirty. The last thing that I would say is good people know good people. And I don't know that enough companies are rewarding bringing in team members that are referred by their own staff and actually compensating their team members for that. I would rather hire someone that somebody I trust has worked with in the past and would vouch for and would say, I know this person is going to show up on time. I know that I can rely on them to come to work. I've seen their quality in the past. So for me, keep your standards high. Good people know good people and be willing to train people who are willing to learn. If you can do those three things, which I recognize in some cases you're looking at an investment, but that will pay off tenfold more so than hiring off a job board and hoping for the best because hope fundamentally is not a strategy when it comes to talent. And it's not going to take you very far. If anything, you're going to find yourself exhausted and doing the same thing over and over again, and it will cost more.
Yeah, and 100% agree. Whenever I learned also the hard way as a hiring managing manager, when you desperate hire, it's like I just need somebody. Never works out.
No,
Ever. At
no.
least it never worked out for me.
I have a couple unicorns over the course of my career that I love to tell stories about. Most of them know who they are, but they are few and far between. And it is a difficult market. I mean, the trades especially is a difficult market because there just hasn't been the driver for people to invest their time into learning the trades.
Yeah.
And grouping is unique because you can get your journeyman. There is a red seal that you can achieve through that process, but a lot of companies don't require it. And it's not like it is if you want to be a millwright or a plumber where
Yeah.
there's certification
Yeah.
you have to have. So it is just a very unique space in the trades in that regard. So it comes with its own challenges in finding the best possible talent that's out there. But again, good people know good people. So I lean very heavily into that because it's been a model that's very much worked for me in my career.
Yeah, and even for me, hiring people who are willing to learn and willing to work hard, and there are always people like that, and you're just being willing to invest in them and teach them, those were some of the best people I've ever hired.
I've had people who had no skills and came in and were just ready to go. I will do whatever you ask of me. I will start from the bottom. I just want to be part of what you're building. And I think the other thing too, when I say hold your standards high, it's know who you are. Because when you know you're a great company and you have something amazing to offer, you know that not only are you great people, but you're willing to invest, you're willing to train, you're willing to provide opportunity. When you have all that on your side, you know, the truth will do. When you're honest about that, people will pick up on that. They will want to work with people like that. They will want to go to the wall for people like that. And they will want to learn from people like that. So that strategy speaks for itself. And quite frankly, as far as I'm concerned, in my experience thus far, has been a very large key to our success and our growth.
So let's talk growth in sales.
Okay.
You mentioned the sales as well.
Yeah.
And you're right. I truly believe that we always sell. We sell our relax. We sell our, I don't know, partners to do something they might not want to do, but if they want to, but we sell kids on eating things that they don't want to eat, but sure eat, right? And as you say, as leaders in corporate, even if you're not sales, when there is change and there's so much change lately, you're selling your team, right? Through the change management on all the things that are changing that need to happen, all the things that are new, but we did them that way and so on, right? Tell me a little bit how you personally switched that mindset from being an HR and coach into being the owner of the company, and I know but you are doing a lot of sales for your company, what that transition was like, what's helping you be successful at it?
I love this question. I'm so glad that you asked me this. I have to answer your question with a bit of a story. So I was at a panel recently. It was a women in construction panel. But anyway, they asked the question, how do you deal with imposter syndrome to the person who was answering? And I wanted to just stand up and yell. My answer to how you deal with imposter syndrome is so simple, which is everything comes down to courage, and courage just means be scared, do it anyway. Be scared, do it anyway.
Yeah.
And there's a million people who argue with me on how courage doesn't apply to every situation, and that's fine. I'm not talking about every situation. But when I came into ownership, when I jumped in with Andrew full tilt and said, okay, we're doing this, there needed to be someone spearheading business development. And we have a divided focus. So he focuses a lot on existing client relationships, building out work with that. And he also does most of our operational strategic stuff on that side. Now, I'm front end, face of the company. So what do I do? Well, the thing that has been the most exciting to me is I literally, when I first got there, sat down and started going through maps and just looking at buildings and making phone calls. Then I started going to events and showing up with just business cards in my name and just telling people who I was. And interestingly enough, for me, the thing that was the greatest driver of conversation would be, my name's Kate, and I'm the owner of an ICI roofing company. And they're like, oh, nice to meet you, Kate. Did you just say you own a roofing company? And then I get the double take. Yeah, I do. So wait, do you build houses? No, we do like big box, new construction, capital roof replacements. We do asset management with portfolio managers. And then they stare at you like, oh, seriously? So it's become such a conversation driver to just be an owner in this space. So I love that. I love the element of surprise in a lot of ways because it just becomes a conversation starter.
Mhm.
But the thing that I love the most about it solely has been I am used to having to stand up in front of a room full of people, explain things that are going to happen, talk about policies that we're changing, or getting in front of a panel of people and answering questions, whether it's a board or oppositely, being part of a panel and interviewing a candidate. All of those things to me were second nature. I had done them forever. Now I'm doing all of the same things, but now I'm presenting, here's all the different services that we offer. Here's our experience. Here's our insurance. Here's the people who can speak to that work. Or I'm going into a room full of people I have never met before, and I'm just
Mhm.
walking up to random strangers and introducing myself. And quite frankly, every time I do it, it's like how people get scared going up to a microphone for public speaking, and then you don't actually feel comfortable until you're either done or you've started doing it. For me, I am always uncomfortable. I'm always nervous, like I'm about to step out on stage, but there is something very, very exhilarating for me to do that anyway. I genuinely love just now, okay, I park my car, just get out and go in. Like, this is it. In fact, I went to an event very recently. I kinda psyched myself out because it was a much bigger deal event. I can't speak to what it was, but big deal event. There was a lot of big deal people that were gonna be there, and the whole day I'd, like, psyched myself out. I'm not gonna know a soul there. I'm like, "Am I sure I can do this? This is a big deal." I got myself very much into that imposter syndrome belief system
Mhm.
throughout the course of that day. My kids were particularly challenging that morning. It was a rain day. It was a frustrating day. So I get in my car and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to totally rewire this thought for myself. And I'm like, you're the most important person in that room. Everybody wants to talk to you. Everybody's excited to learn what you have to say. And I just did this whole thing my whole way there. And when I got there, instead of waiting for a minute to just breathe, I just got right out, went in, grabbed a drink from the bar, turned around, and the first person I saw, I just started talking to them. And then bing, bang, boom, throughout the night, just, I probably met the entire room. There's probably 75 to 100 people there. And it's because I completely talked
Mhm.
myself through a new script of, everybody wants to talk to you. They're all excited to hear what you have to say. And that's part of sales. It's just putting yourself out there, being absolutely terrified and doing it anyway. Because you have no idea where it's gonna lead. You could meet ironically, we met in the strangest of contexts, and yet we probably know a lot of the same people, and there's a lot of crossover of how we can also benefit each other, and had no
Exactly.
idea until we started talking.
And I love that you mentioned courage. That's actually one of my core value in my business because I believe in that too, Kate. The same thing, like you don't get confident just by psyching yourself. You get
Mhm.
confident by just being courageous, meaning you're scared and you do that thing anyway by putting yourself in a situation that help you grow. And as you do that over and over, then you gain confidence because you're more and more comfortable doing it and you get better at doing it. So I love that you mentioned that.
So I have this, and I don't know if it's a quote I read, it probably is at some point, but it said, if you knew that if you knocked on 150 doors, that at door number 150 would be the greatest win of your life, how many doors would you knock on?
Yeah. I love
I mean, to me, that's the silliest question of all time. I think that everybody would say you knock on all 150 doors. So
yeah.
basically what I realized was my job was to knock on 150 doors. And the thing I love the most is it never actually takes that many.
Yeah.
Because more often than not, or at least my experience has been, and I'm really grateful for that, but I think that's an attitude and a perspective thing as well. I think that whatever belief system you have, universe, God, whatever it is, spirit, doesn't matter. You put out that kind of energy, you become the magnet for it. And I have a fundamental belief system in owning your gifts and your skill set as well. I think you have a fundamental duty to actually bring your talent to the world. They need it. In an absence of that, you're robbing the people in your little pocket of the universe of what they're meant to receive from you, and vice versa. You are meant to receive that as well. So if I'm not showing up as my full self, if I'm not stretching myself to those really exciting, scary things, I might not have met those 3 people, and I have people like that. I have this little collection of people from the
Mhm.
last couple of years that I wouldn't have known at all, and I cherish those relationships if I hadn't shown up in the rooms that I've shown up in. So, that very terrified Kate who was knocking on 150 doors,
Yeah.
I might not have won the biggest prize yet because who even knows what that is, but I've got a lot of wins along the way, so I'll take it.
Yeah. So here is the question, because you are using coaching tools on yourself, help
Mhm.
yourself do that. So even that reframing, you're noticing, okay, I'm not in the greatest headspace as I'm
Mm.
going into a big meeting that could be potentially very beneficial for opportunities. And as you're driving, you're reframing how you think to put yourself in a mindset that makes you feel better and therefore show up better,
Mhm.
which I love that because I do the same. What else do you think how coaching experience or being a coach helps you not only with yourself and how you show up in your business, but in leading the company?
Oh, Maggie, how much time do you have?
Have lots of time.
It's funny that we use the word coach because I have a love-hate relationship with it because I don't know how you quantify all of what that is to be a coach into a singular word. Like, there's so many facets of the work that I do, but also what I have experienced. So, you will notice very quickly there's a trend in how I share, which usually comes with stories. So, I had a mentor for about 10 years who passed away in 2023, and I mentor, guide, coach, I don't even know, there's a million words that I could offer who she was to me, and I learned a profound amount from the experience of working with her, and ironically, she was actually a consultant for the company I worked with previously, but
Mhm.
it was so much more than that, the dynamic that we had created and just the way that she would teach through story. One of the things that she said to me a long time ago had to do with practice. When you think about practice, you take kids to hockey practice and then they play the game. So the skills that they learn, they apply to the game. And that's the way that it goes. And I always pictured it like that. Like it needs to actually be a practice that I utilize in my day-to-day life. And I'm not great with journaling. I'm not great with note taking or recording or whatever. So for me, it's just become this thing that I adopt in my thought process. Like I've mechanically changed the way my brain responds to situations as a function of the work that I have done through my own mentor. And part of that was actually superseding through some of the biggest challenges I've been through both in my life and in my career. And so I use the power of story. Like I fundamentally believe I have a friend who says, and it's also probably a quote out there, everyone's story is someone else's survival guide. So I use the power of story in our business. So I will share anecdotes about my own lived experience or anonymously share stories of things that I've witnessed of other people to help people relate, to make it personal. So, like, it's the challenge that you have in front of you right now, you're not alone in that. Here's another example of somebody who persevered through something that was really tough, and let's look at what they learned from that, and how can we apply that? And also, I think one of the toughest things in business, and especially the world today, is how powerfully stress impacts us and our belief around what success actually looks like and how we measure that. So we're holding ourselves to standards that are impossible. Women talk about having it all and balance. What on earth does that even mean? Some days the balance is 90-10, other days it's 40-60, other days you can only do the best with what you have to work with. So the best that you can do sometimes is just to get really present in the moment you're in and remember that you're alive.
Yeah.
Sometimes when I'm dealing with people who are stressed out or challenged, my greatest goal is just to get them here right now because they're suffering their own imagination of all the horrors that could happen 7 months from now. Okay, wait, it's Tuesday. It's sunny out.
2 p.m.
Why don't we just get here for a second? Because the future Kate isn't gonna worry about that
Yeah.
right now. That's future Kate's problem. She's not here yet. I got 7 months to build the skill set for that Kate to be able to respond to that.
Yeah.
So sometimes I help people with how to think. We're not really taught how to think. We're taught very much what to think. It's just absolutely hilarious about the world today, but we're not actually taught how to think. And to me, it's not even about critical analysis. It's about how we move with our own thoughts because we actually believe that everything we think is real,
It's true.
is real.
Yeah.
And my immediate way to pull people out of that is to ask them if you were to look at your thoughts like a movie, everything that was happening and everything that you were experiencing was the movie you were watching in your head. Picture every movie you've ever watched, every horror movie where you're like, don't answer the phone, don't go in the basement. What would you scream at the main character to do? You'd probably be like, can you sit down, take a breath, and just calm down for a minute? Everything's gonna be fine. Look at your life. 9 times out of 10, we're usually actually pretty happy with all the things we have. We just have no idea that we are because we don't ever let ourselves live there. We will camp out and camp, this is hell and everything sucks and I don't sleep and I forget to eat and I don't know if I'm ever gonna be a success. We'll live there, but we don't wanna camp out for a minute and, oh, like, life's actually pretty good.
Yeah.
I spend so much time I even have clients that will call me basically, be like, "I'm having this day, 911, talk me off my ledge here because 'cause I'm going insane." And my usual go-to is just, okay, like, you're in the car, you're driving, you have a coffee in your hand, you're listening to your favorite song. Let's just take a minute with that. 9 times out of 10, that brings you back down to, "Oh, right, actually, I'm okay, everything's fine." Because quite frankly, that's usually most people's biggest problem. So I struggle with that just as much as the rest of us do, but I'm also hyper aware of that, so my rebound rate is a lot faster. Where it would have been 5 years ago, it could have taken me a week. 3 years ago, it could have taken me 3 days. Now I can be minutes between certain experiences. Sometimes days depending on how big it is. Especially
Yeah.
with the kids, they can drive you up the wall sometimes, but
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it applies. It's a mindset thing. It's a how to help people learn how to think,
Mhm.
how to dance with their own thoughts, because that's all that it really is, this dance that's constantly evolving and changing all the time.
Yeah.
And it's the self-practice of actually recognizing that this isn't something that you can just do if you're not actually creating awareness around the fact that it is, in fact, a practice. In absence of having it, you will lose it. It's like if you don't get on skates, you're probably not gonna be very good at hockey.
100%. I always tell my clients, as you say, like, oh, don't try to solve for a problem in the future. We're
Mhm.
not there yet. We'll worry about it when it comes. Let's focus right now, right here. Yeah. And as you
One of my colleagues would love this because one of the things that I routinely say to her is I have these, like, weird habits and things that I will do where I will, like, fix something up really detailed and maybe save it somewhere so that I'll give you an example. We had this really complicated progress report we had to send to a client and really complicated invoicing that we had to do. And so I just, like, tooth and nail detailed dumped this major PDF into the file, and then sure enough, 6, 8, 10 months later, we got a random question from the client. If I had not done this document, it would have taken us a day or 2 to figure out how to answer it, but because it was just saved neatly there, wrapped in a little red bow, we just opened it, found the answer within 5 minutes and answered, and I'm like, "God, I love past Kate." Like, I will literally say, like, "Thank you, past Kate," randomly to things that I have done. "Thank you so much for doing that." Because to me, it's like the future me saying thank you to the past in the same way that I'll be like, "Hey, future Kate, I'll be ready for that. Don't worry. We're gonna be prepared." But on that time. So that language, just actually baking that into the day-to-day too, again, it's just like yet another practice of, okay, these are very separate things. That's not for a year, that's not for 6 months. I don't need to give my entire sanity to that right now.
And as you say, it is a practice, it is a skill set that you need to develop by implementing in practice. Unfortunately, maybe down the line, if we survive as a species, then we evolve more, we'll be able to do it automatically. But right now, our brains are programmed to worry and to believe every thought that like ever crosses our mind and so on. And that doesn't serve us 90% of the time or 99% of the time. And it takes practice to develop those skills, but they're so powerful. Your employees and people around you are lucky to have you. And
Thank
then
you.
anybody else, there's coaches for it. It's good. But
It's funny because when we have our meetings too, we've had people say, "I guarantee you the average roofing company is not having a meeting like this right now." Because I open our meetings with, "What's our energy levels at a scale of 1 to 10?" And I will write everybody's name on the board and their energy levels, and anybody who's not, like, north of a 6 will be like, "What would it take to get you there? Like, how do we get you there? How do we help? How do we support?" Because everything is energy at the end of the day. So if you wanna move, you wanna grow, people have perspectives on hustle and grind culture, but there is a work element required of you. And we all wanna be sort of vibing together. So how do we make sure that everybody gets what they need and you have the support that you need and you're armed with the tools? You have to show up for people. So you've gotta be prepared with that as well. It's just very unique the way that we approach things, but at the end of the day, we also get the work done too. So you create something very new.
I love that. So let's talk being a woman in the industry, having kids. And I don't like the word balance because I guess people think that balance, oh, it has to be equal, everything. And I always say that it's not about that, right? It's about defining what you want out of your personal life, out of your professional life, and put equal importance to the things that are important to you. So, first of all, knowing what's important for you, right? And then equal importance doesn't mean equal amount of time. It just means that, hey, if I decide to spend time with my kids, let's say on the weekend, then I'm going to be totally present and focused, even if it's a couple of hours. And I'm going to enjoy my moments with them while during the week, the majority of time, let's say, might be work. But as you say, like when we identify those things that are important to us and then we take moments to acknowledge them, that
Mhm.
actually our life is not that bad. And we have practices to manage our mindset, our stress level, our energy level. You can achieve harmony balance, however you call it, majority of the time. And it's life is not perfect. We all have our stressors and so on, but how you handle it, how you teach yourself to handle it, that's what matters. No, I want to learn from you. How do you handle being a mom, being a woman, and a leader in the industry that's not necessarily female dominated? And how do you keep your sanity?
Sure. Well, who told you that I do is my first question.
Okay, if you're done, then none of them got too much.
Sanity is also in a lot of ways, and in the context that I'm speaking to, it is also a choice because it's a function of practices. So for me, I have a fundamental belief system in healthy, happy parents, healthy, happy kids. So I didn't always live by that. I mean, through the pandemic, I had two under basically two. I was working in a high level job, high powered executive position at a plant that worked 24/7 in a growing business. It was incredibly stressful, and I had no idea. I actually hated the term self-care so much during that time because I thought, like, "Who the hell has time for that? What even is that?" I still had a love-hate relationship with the terminology of it because I think it's so much more than that, but there was a lot of guilt that came with the way that I operated at that time, and also I think everybody was feeling that. You just could not possibly do all the things that were expected of you. I think coming out of that pressure cooker, a lot of people had to wake up to what really mattered to them, and I was certainly one of them. I think that was one of the bigger drivers of having a look at my life and going, "How do I want this to look?" But more than that, it was, "What do I wanna teach my kids about what life looks like and who they have the opportunity to become?" So my first questions are always to myself, and then it's a how does that reflect on the people who witness my life? So for me, I need to prioritize my own health. I need to prioritize my sleep. I need to prioritize the opportunity to eat well. I need to prioritize movement at some point, even if it's just a walk in the sunshine or the rain, doesn't matter. There are things that I fundamentally need. I need a space and time throughout the course of the day where nobody needs anything from me. Because I went through 5 straight years where it was all high needs all the time from everyone. And I felt what that depletion was like, and I refuse to live that again. It's not sustainable, and it's no way to live. You're not offering anything to anybody, your husband, your kids, your colleagues, your team members when you're in that space. You think you are, but you're not. And worst of all, there's nothing left for you. Someone once said, "You were the first human you were given." We think that our babies are the only people that we have to take care of because you have this human in your hands that is you're responsible for, but we were the first human we were given. So if we don't take care of that, we're actually teaching this human we have in our hands that they don't matter either. I refuse to do that. So for me, I also want my kids to see that it is okay to want things. It is okay to want time. So I will sometimes say when my water level's here, I will say, "Mommy needs this hour so that she can be a really good mom, and she's just gonna maybe go watch a show by herself or take a bath or go for a walk or whatever. But when I come back, you're gonna have fully present time." I do prioritize time with my kids. Being an entrepreneur, there is time where I can flex my schedule and I can be home and they can take the bus that day and I can be at the bus stop to pick them up. Or we prioritize family time at certain times. They get to stay up later on weekends. We prioritize doing things together. But then they also are very involved because it's our business. So our
Mhm.
kids get excited about things that we get excited about. We prioritize family dinner almost every night. If I'm at an event or my husband's at an event, Nona will come over. But we prioritize rituals so that we have traditions that they can count on, and when they don't happen, we usually make up for that. So, we do an extra special dinner on a Saturday if I wasn't home on a Thursday evening. But balance is an impossible word. It's not something that you can seek out. For me, it's a, what do I want them to learn about life? I want them to learn that there are things that you're gonna decide that you really want, and you're gonna have to work really hard to get them. There is a such thing as sacrifice. Sometimes you have to sacrifice more time than you might have wanted to, or you have to drive really far to get to something, or you have to not go to that thing you were really excited about because something else comes up that's really important. Those things happen. It's part of life. Disappointment's as much a part of life as success and achievement are. So I let them in on both. If a big job we were really excited we might get doesn't happen, I let them experience that with us. We'll tell them about it. But we also do gratitude. Every single night at the dinner table, we go around and what are you grateful for? Everybody has to answer the question. And for me, it's because then again, you anchor yourself in the moment and what are you really just happy you have in your life? And some days it's a really big thing. And there have been days where I'm like, I'm just grateful I had a hot shower. Was by myself and nobody bumped me. And maybe that was the best part of that day, but hopefully those days are fewer and farther between. But I don't really think that anybody just has the perfect recipe for it. And I think we're all trying to find that. And I think it's sad. Mom guilt was something that I didn't have any idea of what on earth that was until I became a parent. And man, was I riddled with it. I've just released that now. I don't hold any guilt for that. I'm going to say the wrong thing. I'm going to do the wrong thing. I'm going to respond in the wrong way at some point. But my kids also know that if I make a mistake, I own it in the same way that I would in my work life. My kids also know if they make mistakes, they need to own it. So all I'm trying to do is model the behavior that I would expect of myself with them and do the best that I can. As far as being a woman in construction, I feel like the truth will do. You know, when you do good work and you're committed to even the reality of a situation that you're not gonna be perfect, that you will make a mistake at some point. One of the things that I love that people love so much about us, and they even say when they're giving references, it actually just happened today. We had somebody let us know we had been chosen for a really exciting project, and he said, "Your reference, the thing that sold the person on you guys was not only did you do great work, but the reality is that you, like everyone, will have something you missed or made a mistake or whatever, but that you were there to make sure you understood it and made good on your word to do a great job and make sure that things were taken care of." And I think for whatever reason, that seems to be something that people feel like is missing in the world today. And that to me speaks to integrity. And I am who I am when I come home, when I go to the office, when I go to a client meeting. I might wear different hats in terms of what people need from me and how I need to show up, but I am the same person because the truth will do. If you're living in truth, you don't have to put on the face. You don't have to wear the facade everywhere you go. I find that exhausting. I've done it. There have been phases in my career where that was required of me, but that's not just not on the ticket for me. So I also want my kids to know that the truth will do. Be who you are. You'll find your spot. You'll find where you're meant to grow. And you'll
Mhm.
grow and flourish because it's so much easier to do it from a space that you are exactly who you are. You're going to respond with the best of
Mhm.
intentions. And when you do make a mistake, you're going to own it and you're going to make good on that. If you
Yeah.
do that, there isn't failure is always going to be part of anything that you do. It's literally the key to success. You can't have one without the other. But it doesn't mean ultimate failure. I think people see failure as like it's a point in time thing and when it happens, that's it. The only time that's the case is when you're dead. But if you have a day and you're up and you can move and you have the world at your feet, you're not done. There's no such thing as that. I absolutely love the saying where people say, "No one's coming to save you." So, like, you gotta get up and you gotta move. I read recently someone added to that. They're like, "If no one's coming to save you, absolutely, you gotta move, but no one's coming to stop you either." And I just love that because that is me through and through.
Yeah, I love that. And as I say, like failure, unless you let it, unless you give up, you can't fail. Because if you
Exactly.
just keep going, if you keep trying, if you keep reiterating, whatever, innovating, you will never fail.
No, no, there is no ultimate failure. Even you can read stories of every major entrepreneur I'm sure you love and thought leader that you love. I guarantee you, at least one of them has gone bankrupt or had a business completely fail. You know, you hear stories of people who slept out of their car at some point in their life and now they're a billionaire. There is no linear path to success that looks like this. It just does not exist.
Yeah.
And it's a hell of a standard to think you need to live up to that, because quite frankly, comparison is the thief of joy. So if every single time you're like, "Oh, this person did this and look at me, I'm nowhere close." Well, great, you never will be if that's what you're spending your time doing.
100%. I agree. And truly, again, balance might be the bad word, but what you described for me, like how you live and how you operate right now, for me, that's balance. Being in knowing who you are, what's important to you, prioritizing those things. And yeah, like living the life where sometimes things go that way and you recalibrate, and sometimes they go that way. Nobody says life is perfect. It's not, it's 50-50. There's things happening and so on. But if you're what's important to you and you recalibrate and you just live in your truth, that's for me, that's what it is. And we definitely have a similar story. Just for me, it happened like a little bit earlier, maybe because I'm older, where when my kids were little, I was just like going, 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 giving, 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 because that's what I thought we were supposed to do as women, as mothers, finding myself behaving not the way I wanted to behave in front of
Mm,
my kids. And at some point, I was like, no, 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 that has to stop. And it
mhm,
had to start with me taking care of me. I always
mhm.
say I wasn't even on the list. It's not like I
Uh-huh,
was
I get
behind
it.
it, I wasn't even there.
Mhm,
And when I realized that, and that was the thing that was preventing me from being the mom and being the person that I wanted to be, I started implementing changes that led me to where I am now, living the way I live now, and I'm very grateful for it.
I think it's a profound moment for anybody who's used to not being on the priority list. Is the moment even if you make the list and you're not used to making the list, you're like, "Oh, this feels different."
Yeah.
And it's maybe you're never gonna be someone who can put yourself first, and I get that. Some people, it's just so ingrained in them that your kids come first or your family come whatever it is, business comes first. But if you make the list and you're the top 3, it's gonna feel a hell of a lot different than either not being on it or being number 100. I always try and tell people too, when I'm working with them is if perfection is the goal, we have a hell of a slog ahead of us. So why don't we just aim for marginally better than we are right now? So if you're maybe struggling with anxiety all day, every day, and you heart pounding out of your chest, let's just take 3 minutes once a day where all you have to do is go, okay, my heart's beating. My brain is telling it to do it without me having to. So I'm not dying because this is happening all on its own. Sometimes I just want people to be aware, like, oh, your body is actually keeping you alive without you doing anything. So you're not dying. So just remember that. You're not having to go, okay, heartbeat, heartbeat, heartbeat constantly. Just coming up with that awareness is like, oh, okay, yeah. Just do that for 3 minutes a day for a while and then come back and talk to me again. Oh, I did that and I'm feeling a bit better now. Okay, let's try the next thing and just keep adding on over time.
Yep.
You gave a redefinition for balance. For me, I had this profound learning a couple years ago after I lost my mentor, and she always used to say to me, "You've always had everything you ever needed, you just didn't know it." A whole story that goes along with this, but I just had this moment once. It was about 6 months after she passed away, where it finally landed. It had been a decade of her telling me this, and 6 months to the day actually after she passed away, it just landed. It hit me like a ton of bricks. I ended up bawling my eyes out, but also laughing simultaneously because I realized, oh, like all of these things that I think that I need, I don't. Like I have it. I'm alive. My kids are healthy. We have this business. Everything that I need is right here, right now. I can respond. I can choose how I want it to think. How I think is going to influence how I feel. I can decide if I want to be on the priority list or not. Like I have everything that I need. I just need to decide what I wanna do with that because I've always had this, and we all do. And we just convince ourselves that we don't.
And that's where it comes that compare I call it compare and despair.
Yes.
The moment you start comparing yourself to other people and usually to their, let's say, social media version of their life, then you're not really seeing their full life. You're not understanding the journey that they went through to even get to where they are.
Mhm.
We all do that. That's what our brains are kind of programmed to do. But that's where it comes to practice, to noticing as fast as possible when you get there and then moving yourself back and
Mhm.
seeing all the good that you already have and then focusing on your journey and so on.
Well, I mean, it's funny that you say social media. The reality is everything that you see about someone else's life is curated to some extent. You're only seeing a small slice of them in the moment that you're in with them. You have no idea what other people's journeys look like or how
Yeah.
hard their life could be or what they're going through. So to try and compare yourself to anything, whether it's their social media account or the way they acted at dinner or what their family looks like or the clothes they wear, or the house they live in, like you just have no accurate picture of what that looks like. You don't live in that person's skin, so it's such a waste of lived experience to spend time living in that, so
Right. So one more thing that I want to talk about is differences between running an online business. So you were a coach a little bit for some time. Our businesses are online
Mhm.
versus running a service-based business that it's construction, it's in person with people and all that. What are the key differences that you're experiencing and maybe some wisdom behind it?
Coaching in the online space, which I didn't just coach in the online space, so I did do some in-person coaching,
Mhm.
but it was just me, so there was no staff.
Yeah.
So, first and foremost, when it's just you can decide what you wanna do with your time. The only people clawing for your time are your clients, but I was very adamant about boundaries in terms of scheduling to make sure that we did things that worked for both of us because you have to be with your clients because otherwise they might call you 25 times a day, and there are some clients that would take advantage of that. It was unique in that space, but it was very much driven by exactly what I wanted to do, when I wanted to do it. I could curate everything about what I wanted it to look like. Yeah, even just the amount of time that I wanted to invest in it on a day-to-day basis. I also was very particular about the clients that I would take on, and I still
Mhm.
actually do dabble in the coaching space. I only have 1 active client on my well, technically 2 on my roster right now, and it's just solely based on the limited amount of time that I have to offer to it. I don't market it at all, in fact, anymore. I only work off of referrals, and that's that side of it, the side of me that I still like to do because if somebody's excited enough to come and talk to me, I'll do an intake with them much like you do and decide if it's worth my time. Because the last thing I want to on that space, which is also very different from the construction world, is I don't wanna offer my time to someone who's not really going for it. There's a lot of people who think they wanna coach, but they're not actually willing to do the work. Can show up and have the same conversation week after week after week and be 6 months in and be no further along than you were. I can
Yeah.
teach you every single thing that I know, but if you're not willing to go out into your life and apply it, if you're not willing to do the hard things, if you're not willing to come back, like, I call it homework because to me it's the same as when you're in school. You gotta do the homework, and I give very creative, unique activities for people to do,
Mhm.
sort of practice the things that they're challenged with. If they're not willing to do that, I can tell pretty quickly who I'm dealing with, and I just don't want my name attached to it. I don't wanna spend the time. Like, there are people who are willing to spend some good money on coaching, but to me, it's not worth it if I'm just gonna have the same conversation week after week
Yes.
because I have so many other things that I could spend my time doing. On the construction side of things, we have a huge team of people. So as soon as people become part of it, people are innately fallible. So you've got the flex of just scheduling people and organizing people and allocating the right resources to the right places at the right time, making sure you have the right people on the bus. There's that element. So I very much operate as the financial controller of our business. So it's being very strategic about investments. It's being very adamant about scheduling. It's making sure that we have, I call it fill the fridge. The fridge is full so everyone can eat. So then when we get our invoicing and our payroll, so I'm managing much bigger items that have a much wider ripple effect. In the coaching space, I'm dealing with one person who has their ripple effect in their life. And obviously that impacts me. It has, but one of my more recent clients said to me, working with you for 3 months was more powerful than the 11 years of therapy I just invested in. Those moments are huge for me. What a hell of a compliment. So that's a huge ripple effect for me. And I take that into my business world and apply everything I can possibly do to support the people that we have. But it's bigger business. And in that space too, you're not going to be as selective. You're going to make sure you're working with quality clients. You're going to make sure you're working with people who are going to pay for the work that you do. You're going to make sure that you're dealing with people who, are going to be able to manage their projects well because we are effectively a subcontractor being the roofer. If it's a new construction project, we're one of many multi-trades on site, so you wanna work with good teams who know how to manage things really well. So you're gonna be selective in that regard, but you're also going to open yourself up to opportunities with new people. So you're learning people a lot more so, you're learning teams of people. It's comparing, like, 2 entirely different worlds. They're just so fundamentally different. Being a leader and an owner comes with its own pressure too, so my day does not stop when my team's day stops. So when our technicians have gone home, even if they're working late because it's a really great day and they wanna take advantage of weather, they might go home at 6 o'clock. My office, it's 4 to 5 depending on the person and the schedule. But if I get a call at nighttime or a client can only speak to me at nighttime or somebody has a question or we have an emergency response, we are a 24/7 service operation, we take those calls after hours. So an owner's job never stops because, again, you wanna keep your teams working, you wanna make sure that you have work in the pipeline, you wanna make sure that they have ways to pay their mortgages and feed their families. Your job is 24/7. In coaching, my boundaries are very clear and when and how they can contact me. On the roofing side, there's still definitely boundaries, but there are ways and mechanisms where, like, that will filter through because we want that to be the case. Opportunity is gonna knock, you wanna respond to that. And it's also in the industry, in the construction industry, in order for you to get your name out there, it's not just great marketing or social media. You have to be in the rooms, and there's events that you need to be at and places you need to exhibit at, and I don't do that on the coaching side. I've never marketed myself. I've never needed to. But in this space, we'll do a trade show, or I will go to a large commercial real estate function with people who are managing, like you come from, all the big properties are gonna be there, and you wanna make sure that you've got FaceTime with them because they're not gonna call you if they don't know you. It's literally apples and oranges, which is the most minute way for me to say it, but they could not be more different. It's such a different world.
I do agree. And even like if you take any online business, it's so simple in a way,
Mhm.
and there's not a lot of complexity. Yeah, maybe technology, you can say that there's some complexity to it, but if you put that with actually construction industry, that's not only project but also operation when it is
Mhm.
24/7, no matter what, right? Things
Yeah.
happen in buildings all the time. It's like completely.
If you think about it on the coaching side, that was such an amazing compliment that and I don't think my client even meant to say it that way. It was just, "I want you to know that this was so powerful for me," which was a huge moment. But she couldn't tangibly hand me something. Whereas I can get you in the car and I can drive by really cool buildings and be like, "We built that."
Yeah.
I did not know how much I loved that until I started doing it going, "Oh, yeah, that's us. Oh, that's us. Oh, that's us." And it's just so cool. I wish I could say that I literally did it sometimes. I get to go on the roofs, but I've never built or installed one. But I also recognize that everybody has their part to play. It wouldn't happen without me either. So it's a function of a whole team of people that come together and pull that off. So there one is very intangible and one is very tangible as well from just the industry perspective. Because interestingly enough, even with the challenges that the construction industry has right now with the trades issues and needing more people with skills and just with the way the market has been, last probably year and a half, it'll always be a growing industry. We're always going to need the roof over our head. We're always going to need the spaces that we spend our time, whether it's your homes or your grocery stores or the malls or community center, like you name it, we need spaces. We need these buildings. So building is never gonna stop. In the same way that the work of coaching and the human work that needs to get done is also never gonna stop. They just look very, very different.
Okay, so before we finish, is there anything last nugget of wisdom that you would like to leave the listeners or the audience with?
Yes. I had a profound moment of awareness. I've had a few that I've shared with you probably about 2, maybe 3 years ago now. It was 3 years ago. It would have been just before I decided to take this leap. So, coming back to the mentor I mentioned, I'm gonna name her. Her name was Sharon. She was an amazing human being. She used to say to me all the time, "We have endless resources available to us. Use your resources." And I never really fully understood what she meant. I always thought she meant, like, I have a team and they can go do this and I can have them help me with this. But it was just never like, "Ah, I don't feel like that's it. That didn't solve this problem. I still feel frustrated or stressed out," or whatever it was. I had this moment in my old office where I was sitting one day and I could visually picture a bookshelf in front of me, and it had old books that were titled of the things that I was using at that point in my life. Certain people that I relied on were the name of those books, and certain mechanisms that I would use. For one of them was called wine because I definitely used that as a resource to get through. So I'm looking at this bookshelf, visualizing this, and I go, "Okay, like, those are my resources." And then I had this moment where I just sat back in my chair and I, like, literally had my eyes closed and I looked up and I realized, oh, the bookshelf keeps going. It was like Beauty and the Beast, where it was like 8,500 levels high. And I went, "Oh, okay, so these resources on this shelf got me here." As I lean back, I realize there's resources on these shelves as they go up, and every single time I take a leap in my life, I'm gonna have to step into utilizing new resources. So what are the resources on the next shelf? And when I started thinking about life that way, I was actually able to fill in the blanks of those book title covers to realize, okay, so if I wanna step into entrepreneurship, what are the things that I'm gonna have to learn? When I came into our business, it was, okay, I'd never managed AR and AP before. I'd never looked at the balance sheet or the P&L for I had within the context of the business that I was working for, but I was not responsible for it in the way that the financial controller was or the CEO was. But when you step into ownership, you've gotta have your hands in every piece. So I realized, oh, I know all these things. And then it was sales. That's another book. That's another resource. Okay, so what does that mean? What do I have to learn? And there was something very empowering about that experience of going, we do actually have every resource available to us. We live in a world where it's information overload. Well, if it's information overload, we can also curate it and go, I want to learn this skill, or I want to read about this thing, or I want to know about what this means. And it was just this profound realization right back to you've always had everything you ever needed. You have these endless resources. And when you take a chance or you make a choice, you just need to lean back and go, okay, I need to look at the next level of resources to step into that. And it's okay if you don't know what that is right now. But the reality is you will, as long as you have courage and you're scared and you do it anyway. So that mechanism for how I've moved through the world is I constantly have this moment where I lean back and I'm like looking at the next bookshelf and going, okay, when I get there, those are the resources that I'm gonna need. And I just prepare myself that way in knowing I don't know it all yet. That's okay that I don't know it all yet. But I also know that the past versions of me got prepared for where I am now, and I'm gonna keep doing that. So that has been such a game changer for me from a perspective point of view, from a learning point of view, and just for, quite frankly, sometimes how to get through the hardest days. There's the resources. You have endless resources available to you. How can you reach out and grab one of them right now where you need it? I guarantee you we have more than we think.
Okay, I'm here. I want to go there. What do I need? What skill set do I need to develop? What do I need to learn? What tool do I need to learn? Whatever that is to get there. And when you do that, it's not about knowing it all and being perfect right away, but just understanding that, hey, I can learn anything I want. Like those things are acquired. You're not born with them. You don't need to have magical talents or whatever. You can just learn them. And as you say, now everything is available.
Absolutely.
I lived in a time where you had to buy a book and sort through the book, and there wasn't even everything in the book.
The
Just like
encyclopedias, when they used to sell those door to door. I will add this as well because it's funny, even when you send me this completed, I guarantee you I will notice it. So trust yourself. At the end of the day, like I said, you have everything you ever needed. And the reason I say this is you had mentioned to me, oh, I sent you the topics, what we're going to talk about. And I told you point blank, I didn't even look at it because it will influence how I show up. I'll be priming myself, okay, she's going to ask me about this. I'll try to pre-bake answers and I'm so much better on the fly. So I can already tell you, I guarantee when you go back to the beginning of this, there was a Kate who was a little unsure. I probably even in my first few answers probably sounded a bit more cookie cutter because you would expect a podcast to open with tell me a little bit about yourself and your career and all these wonderful things that you need to do to set the stage. And you'll hear it. It'll sound a little bit more, okay, a little bit more buttoned up. And then as we get into it, when I realize, okay, just give them the goods. You have it. Just be you. It totally changes the dynamic. Like I can tell you even the way I feel now versus the way I felt when I started was okay. I trusted myself enough to not look, but I also still was like, "Okay, I gotta." Yeah, people wanna hear the textbook answer. Here's the thing, well, leadership and HR, great, but it's a melting pot of a human being and all of my lived experiences and how I show up in the world, how I apply that to business, how I apply that to parenting, and just quite frankly, how I apply it to being a human, figuring it the heck out the way everyone else is, so
Yeah, I love that. Thank you.
look at yourself.
So, where people can find you, where people can connect with you.
LinkedIn, I am an avid user of LinkedIn. I love that as a tool. Our social platforms are definitely out there as well, but to connect directly with me would be on LinkedIn. So I am under my first last name, Kate Selbie, owner of Stybek Roofing. So that would be the number one space I would say if you wanted to connect. I'm a very active user there, so would love to hear from you.
That's how we met.
I know. I love LinkedIn. I've made so many connections there. I don't think people really know how to utilize it yet as a tool.
Yeah.
Those who have are doing well. And there are lots of ways figures it poorly too. I think that's the true of any of these tools, so
Yeah. It's okay if you go out there and try LinkedIn and use it poorly at first and
yeah,
you use it better, no
exactly.
problem. But we'll link all the social media for your company and your
Yes.
LinkedIn profile in the show notes. So that's going to be available. Thank you so much
Thank you,
for
Maggie.
doing this with me. I really, really loved our conversation. Thank you.
It was really fun. I know we're gonna be talking more. I can already feel it.
Awesome. Thank you.
Awesome.